Much. I've entitled my message for today, Where Are You on Tuesday Mornings? Because today we're blessed to have with us a group of men who know where they are on Tuesday mornings, as they have become a part of a group that in their book it's often said they belong to the group that no one wants to belong to. All of these men and their wives and their families have lost a son or a daughter for a variety of reasons and a variety of ways. I first became aware of this group through Jon Pavey, one of our own church members, who is connected and committed to this group. The group, Tuesday Mornings, had its beginning May 23rd in 2004 because of a connection that Reverend Marcia Hutchinson, who serves at St. Luke's United Methodist Church, made with a few men who had lost children to begin a process of sharing with one another and connecting with one another. From that beginning, every Tuesday morning, never missing a Tuesday morning, men meet at 7 a.m. at the Omni Hotel at Shadeland and 82nd Street. And also since then, another men's group, another one of these groups has begun to meet on Thursday mornings in Greenwood at Bob Evans. Some have been with the group since its inception, but other men have come and gone. But all are welcome to be a part of this ongoing supportive group of men just trying to live beyond the loss of a child or children. About 6 months ago, a book was published, which they have titled Tuesday Mornings with Dads, which is a compilation of personal stories from several of the men who participate in this group. Tony Dungy, the Colts coach, can't get that out, wrote the foreword to this book, obviously because he has also lost a son. Each chapter that follows is a story of a gut-wrenching loss of a child, some just children, some young adults, some boys, some girls, some from a battle with a disease, some from death caused by someone else, and some from lifelong struggles with addictions. Those are the differences. But the commonality that I have found as I've read the book twice is the terrible pain that comes from such a loss, a pain that never actually heals and is never forgotten, a pain that at best you can learn how to live with and manage, a pain that is beyond the ability to handle alone, but instead better managed with the support of others and faithfully. Or as one of the dads, Marv Hamilton, said in his portion of the book, the journeys have all been different, but the destination is the same. Their book, Tuesday Mornings with Dads, will be available on sale in the parlor following our service. And you'll also have an opportunity to speak with a few of the fathers who are here with us this morning. But now I'd like to invite all of us to pause right now and bow our heads in prayer. God, as we prepare for today's message, just pray for strength for the fathers who are here to share their stories. And God, just pray that our hearts will be open to not only hear their stories, but God, to also learn the ways that we may love and support one another as we have friends and those we know who go through maybe not only this kind of loss, but any kind of loss in our lives. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. 2 goals I have for us today is, one, I would like this group to share what it takes to get through an experience of this kind of grief. And this grief is specific to their loss of a child, but I also believe that the process is the same for any of us who are grieving any kind of loss, a loss of a job, a loss of a home, any kind of loss. The process is similar. And second of all, I want us to learn and to hear from these gentlemen what it's like to be supported by other persons, or what it's like to not be supported, because maybe we as others don't know how to support or what to say, or we're very uncomfortable. So I hope to help all of us with that process today. With that said, I'd like to invite the 4 dads who are with us here this morning to come forward, and you can just come forward and you can take a seat anywhere. I borrowed a pen from somebody before. I got sticky fingers. You got to watch me. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce to you, and I just met these gentlemen just beforehand, so I'm hoping I'm going to do this properly. Chuck Findley, and this is Tom Harford. Jon Pavey, I know because he's a member of this congregation, and Ron Giedt. Ron Giedt. I won't tell him the acronym that you used to remember how to say it. I don't think I can say that in here. Welcome to all of you. I am very appreciative, and we are appreciative for you being here, but truly sorry for the loss and the story that you do have to share. And I'm thankful for you being here to help us so that we may learn how to be more supportive. And so I'd like to begin, first of all, with Tom. I understand that on Sunday, March 7th, you and Lydia had a late night knock at your door of your home that no parent ever wants to have, as two Carmel police officers and a police chaplain were at your door. And I am a police chaplain, so I have stood in those shoes many times and made many of those calls on that side of that door. I know how hard it is for me, but I can't even imagine what it must be like to be on that other side of the door. So could you just share a little bit about the circumstance that had that call happen that night?
Okay. My son Carl was a student at Ball State University in March 2004, and he was gathered with some of his friends on a weekend, and three strangers came and invited themselves into the home of Carl's friend. And later in the evening, Carl took these three guys home. It's actually quite early in the morning the next day, and for that they robbed him of $2 and they murdered him. And it's just something you never think is going to happen to you, and just go on one day at a time.
And maybe some of us remember that because it was certainly covered by the media. You know what, Tom, in the portion of your book, you quoted Psalm 46:2. It says, "God is our refuge and our strength, an ever-present help in distress. Thus we do not fear, though earth should be shaken and mountains quake to the depths of the sea." Also, I wanted to read just a little bit more from your book, your portion of the book. Many have asked me since Carl's death if I'd lost my faith in God and how God could let this happen to Carl. Actually, with me, I now felt like I needed my faith in God more than ever. I can't imagine how I could have made it through these last 4 years without that faith. Many times that first year, I felt that God was literally holding me up with my loving family. I can tell you from my own experience that having a strong faith and finding others with similar loss is helpful. In what ways did you even rely on this faith to sustain you?
Well, I guess in my case, and with all of us, there's so many questions, unanswered questions. There's so many emotions that you go through that you just have to have somewhere to get strength to get through the day, and faith was what did that for me. And because the questions are still there, they're still unanswered, they're going to remain that way, but that's what faith is.
The emotions you gave God, could you give them all to God? I mean, it wasn't just God is comforting and God is present.
I gave some to some other people, but but I did give them to God.
Gave him anger, gave him your tears, and on and on.
And it's just, you realize you're not in charge, and with that, I just had to rely on the faith. And I went through a retreat at my church, and those men all helped me out a lot and got me headed in the right direction, I think.
Thank you. John, could you share a little bit about J.R. and his death and your story?
Well, J.R. was probably the oldest of the children in in the stories in the book. J.R. was 39 when he died. He had had a lifelong struggle with drugs and alcohol, and I never could quite understand. He suffered from a poor self-image, and I could never understand that because he was a very bright kid. He excelled in school. He graduated with honors from Purdue, and he always had good jobs. He was a hard worker. He was innovative and smart. And the weekend that he died, he had received his dream job with Abbott Labs. And when he called to tell me that he'd gotten his job, I could tell he'd been drinking. And I said, why would you drink when you get such good news? And he said, what if I fail? And this was the half empty glass thing with him. And I was going to go up and spend some time with him and did not, which will haunt me forever because he died that weekend. He had an embolism, but it was brought on by drugs. And he faced the pressure that so many kids face today. I think in Carmel High School it accelerated. He always felt kind of out of place there, and we tried everything to help him, and it just wasn't going to be. And when J.R. was going through various treatment sessions, we'd go into counseling, and I'd tell the counselors, so it's not my fault. I raised 2 children, and one of them's doing fine, and it was always my wife who was questioning what could we have done different. But since he's gone, there's not a day goes by that I don't wonder, well, if I'd put him in this instead of that, would that have changed things if we'd gotten him in a smaller school? And the only thing that keeps me going besides these dads is my faith in God and my realization that someday we'll be together again. Now, I don't know how an atheist gets through something like this.
So are you guys used to sharing together? Are you part of this Tuesday morning and you get together and share your stories?
Well, we do. Some days we come in, and if you came to our breakfast, you'd wonder what we're all about because they bore me to tears talking about golf. I'm not a golfer. And then when they're done with that, they pick on me because I went to Ohio State. But then other days you'll come in and a dad will say, I'm really having a bad week. It would have been my daughter's birthday, or this is the anniversary of my son's passing, and we sit and we talk about it. When a new dad comes in our group, we tell our stories, and then that dad tells his. And I think that's kind of a telling thing because, somebody that doesn't know you will ask you about your children, and as soon as you say, well, we lost our older son, they're looking for the exit, and you can see that why did I have to ask look on their face. And sometimes we want to talk about our kids. We have wonderful memories, and we can do this in the group. We can cry, we can hug. I've never told a guy I loved him, but I love every guy in this group because this Tuesday morning is my salvation.
John, let me read a quote to you that I read to you last hour, and I know you're going to change it up a bit. C.S. Lewis, a well-known author, wrote this regarding the death of his own wife. It was like having a leg amputated. You don't get over an amputated leg. The wound may heal, but the leg will never grow back. You'll always have that absence in your life, and you'll always walk with a limp. And I know throughout the book that I've read, several you would refer to, you had a hole in your heart that'll never heal. And I don't know if any of you can speak to that.
Well, I think
Can I make an introduction real quick before you
Sure,
speak?
go
Thank
ahead.
you. This is Chuck Findley, and Chuck has lost two of his sons, Jake and Travis. If you can just tell us a little bit about that, and then...
Okay. Yeah, it was about a little over 3 years ago, late afternoon of February 3rd, 2007. It was actually the day before the Super Bowl between the Colts and the Bears. And my boys, Jake was 12, Travis was 9. Just kids of that age, just totally into sports, love the Colts, video games, anything you can think of, kids that age. So they were all fired up about the Super Bowl. We went to a basketball game that afternoon, one of their friends. After the game, he invited the boys to come over to their house, which they had done many times. We had gotten together with these friends quite a few times over the last couple of years, but there had been a year gap where we didn't get together with them very much because busyness and schedules, and the wife had some health issues. So this was really the first day we were going to get together. The boys went over to their house. They were going to come back over to our house for pizza later that night. It was about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and they're supposed to be there. They never showed up. What happened on the way over in kind of a rural part of Greenwood, they came up on a railroad crossing that didn't have any lights or cross arms, just had a stop sign. Apparently the driver didn't see the train coming, went across the tracks, and they were hit by the train. My oldest son, Jake, was killed pretty much instantly. Travis was taken to Methodist Hospital, where they worked on him, past midnight, but he was finally gone as well. The members of the other family, the husband, wife, and their 9-year-old son all survived, thankfully, but they did have some, serious injuries. So yeah, it's like Tom said, you never think that's going to happen to you. It's a nightmare that I can't even put it into words. It's the worst thing you can ever imagine.
I think I interrupted. You were about to speak to, I believe, the hole in the heart. Is that where I was when you were about to start? Well,
we talk about that a lot because it's a hole in our heart, but we don't ever want that to go away. We don't want to forget about our kids. It's always going to be there, and you have so many great memories of them, and you just don't ever want to forget. And that's basically, you don't want that hole to really close up. You just always, want to cherish the memories of your kids.
In your book, if I can read on page 187, I want to close with what I know is my greatest source of comfort. That is the amazing grace of God and the hope we have through His Son, Jesus Christ. Without leaning on Him, I'm really not sure how I could have made it through this terrible loss of my life. Wherever I go, I give these words of advice. Never take a single day for granted, not ever. Live your life to the fullest and be the best person you can be in the process. Parents, love your kids with all your soul and make sure they know you love them. Believe that the only hope we have after our time on earth is to trust God and that we will see our loved ones once again in heaven.
Yeah. I think initially I thought my life was over after this happened. I felt alone in a great big world. I started questioning my faith, started questioning the goodness of God, questioning the existence of God. And, you have so many questions. Why would this happen? I felt my faith was really strong at the time of the accident. And I started coming to questions like, what is the point of faith? If this kind of stuff is going to happen, why would I even have faith? But, God doesn't guarantee us a life without tragedy or a life without trials. Sometimes that's just part of life, and life is hard. I think it's in James where it says, when you have trials, not if, when. So we can all expect it to happen. We just don't think of it as severe as what some of us have gone through. But I think after I got over the initial shock, my faith came back to the forefront. I realized that is the only hope that we have. This is just a temporary existence here on earth. We've got so much more to look forward to. Even though as tough as it is to get up and go on every single day, you have that hope that you will see your loved ones again. And then when that happens, it's going to be forever.
That's right. That's right. So we can see how it's a faith that certainly sustained all of you through. But I also want to shift us to talk about Ron. When we talk about now, Ron did not write a chapter in the book, so I'll have you share a little bit about let's see, you had a son, Tyler, who died about 1.5 years ago. If you'll share a little bit about that, and then what I want to begin to switch gears a little bit to is to talk about, can you share with us what kind of support you received or maybe didn't receive after Tyler's death?
Well, first of all, we lost Tyler due to a brain tumor, which was an ependymoma. Non-cancerous. It's normally a childhood tumor that usually is caught fairly early. He was 36 and passed away on November 6, 2008. The surgery went well. The things that happened after that, there are some questions about what really did happen. His pressure on his brain, the tubes that were draining it came out 2 or 3 times and became very high, and he ended up having massive strokes and became brain dead. Toughest thing I've ever had to do was to write the orders to the hospital to turn off life support. I still find that hard. But Jon Pavey was a friend through a mutual friend, and Jon encouraged me to join the group. And there's one thing that none of them have said, but this is a group of guys who get it. We have friends, we have family. They've been tremendous support. We have our church, and there's all kinds of support there. But being with a group of guys who've gone through that experience and know what the pain really is.
So this is invaluable, this kind of support. Being able to, because you know, all of you know. So outside of that, then you have this group, but then you have all of us and friends and family that surround you that want to be supportive. And I know, because many times in this book you guys have said people don't get it, or the wrong thing was said, or nothing was said. What is it that we can learn is the kind of right thing to say
I'm
to
not
you
sure
guys?
There's a right thing or a wrong thing, but don't be afraid to talk about it. Each one of us love that child or children. And, it does help if we're able to talk about them.
So, Ron, if I come up and see you, talk to you, is it good for us to ask, say, if you're talking about something, say, talk about Tyler, use Tyler's name?
For me, that's a good thing, because I can share with you a lot of the good things about Tyler. He was a very, very bright young man, just had a world of things to offer, and I find that's good for my soul. In addition to my faith in God, and they've expressed that very well. By the way, I found a book that was very helpful for me because I was angry, and it's not a complicated book, and it's fiction, but it was called The Shack. And it brought me back to a point to not be angry with God anymore and not blame Him for what happened. So, each one of us probably have a little different path, but the journey is the same.
Patti, the group works real great for all the guys that are in the group, but there's been a lot of dads that have been invited to the group who chose not to come to the group. I don't know what they need, and it's different with every person. Every person grieves differently, and there's no perfect thing to say to a person who's grieving. I think from what I've heard from some of the other dads, it's unless you've been there, don't say, I know how you feel, or I know how you must feel. That would probably be the worst one.
I think there were, and I was trying to flip through so I could find it. Oh, here they are. I opened it right away. I'm not sure. I could flip back and find who's. This would be from Jenny Dodd's dad. But we share similar experiences, such as when people try to say the right thing, like, well, you do have other children. Why did you take her to that hospital? Your child is now in a better place. It's platitudes. Aren't those just, it's those kind of platitudes that are hurtful?
You have all kinds of things, and you get to the point that you have to understand these things are said in well-meaning, but someone coming up saying, I know just how you feel, my dog died, it just kind of doesn't do it. There are all kinds of people in this congregation that are listening to this, and you're thinking how terrible it would be to lose a child or a grandchild. But until you have walked this walk, you do not know. And that's what has been so wonderful about the group. But in terms of saying things to people, we remember people that we didn't know that well, that sent us cards or said how sorry they felt. And we also had a lot of people that we thought were friends that didn't say anything. And I think in some cases it's because they didn't know what to say. But even if you say, I'm just so sorry for your loss, I don't know what to say, we understand that. And for me, because my son habits and choices contributed to his death, it is so great to come to this group because there's no judgment in the group. You have a hole in your heart, and it doesn't make any difference how your son or daughter or how your children died. That hole is the same. And realizing that we do need to talk about it, and it's all right to talk about it, and it's all right if you're talking to us about our son or daughter and we get a little teary. All that means is that we have good memories.
Chuck, there's a book by Teresa Rondo called How to Go On Living When Someone You Love Dies. And in there she says, grief is a choppy experience. 2 steps forward, 1 step backward.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people think you go through a normal process of grief. We have one dad that always tells the story about he went to a counselor and she got out the charts and graphs about the grief cycle. He's like, no, we don't need that. We just need how to get through till tomorrow. So, I mean, you can be feeling great, like you're handling things pretty well, and then boom, there's a day it'll hit you, and you're right back to like the day it happened. So it is a very choppy experience.
And it may not be a day. It may be a song that you hear, or an experience that you have, that you did something with that child. It hits you at the times you least expect it. You can be driving down the road, or you can be sitting in church, or you can be at your desk, and it'll all of a sudden just invade. I think each one of these guys have expressed that.
I'm going to read one more thing from the same book. In there, she said, there is no way around the pain that you naturally feel when someone you love dies. You can't go over it, under it, or around it. Going through it is what will help you heal. This group is probably a part of that for you guys? Going through it?
I don't know if going through it is as good as just trying to learn to manage it, and coping skills, management, and that kind of thing, because through sounds like you're going to get to the other end of it, and I don't. And it's kind of like getting over it, or like Chuck was talking about earlier. We don't want to forget about our children. getting over it sounds like forgetting about it. So, and getting through it sounds like the same thing to me. I think it's more of a management
because it will always be there.
It's always going to be there.
Mm-hmm. We appreciate your being here and sharing. It had to be very difficult to be here in front of all of us. But what I hope we can do is to take away from here, hearing how you manage your grief, what you do with it, understanding that, it's 2 steps forward, 1 back. It's all kinds of emotions, and it's all over the place, and it's different for everyone, and that's okay. It sounds like that's what your group tells you. That's okay. We're keeping an eye out on you as you're trying to manage this. So whether it's this group or someone else, I guess we need those kinds of people in our lives when we're experiencing this kind of huge loss. But also as we surround people who have such loss, to remember that let's not pretend it didn't happen.
Patti, I think one very important thing, the reason we decided to do our book 6 months ago, it's hard to tell your story, particularly if, in my case, where there was where my son contributed to his own death. But we thought if we reach one dad that doesn't have this kind of support, or if we reach one family that's going through what we're going through, and this helps, then writing the book and publishing it was worthwhile. And when we wrote this book, we had 18 dads, 14 participated in telling their stories, and now we have 2 groups, one on the north side, one on the south side, and we have about 44 dads. And it's all because of the book or the publicity that the book gave. So we would, if you haven't experienced this yourself, but you have a relative or a neighbor, we would encourage you to get the book for them.
Thank you. And that is, what we hope is that we do find a way to reach out to others and again, find something positive in the midst of this. Thank you so much for being here. Let's, how about we show our appreciation with applause. I'm going to invite you to go ahead and we'll be seated for the closing hymn, and just toward the end of the closing hymn, we will go to the back of the church. These gentlemen will be here to greet you, but also in the parlor to sell their book this day. Thank you very much. You can